Hi, friends. Happy Monday. I hope you're having a great day today. Real fast, I wanted to mention we won't be meeting tomorrow with Election Day, but we'll be meeting again on Wednesday. Okay, I've got two really cool books to share with you all today, and they're both about villages. So let's read the first one, The Firekeeper's Son. Let's find out what happens. The Firekeeper's Son. It says, "We live in an important village," Sanghee's father said. Wow, isn't that beautiful? Sanghi looked around. A few huts made of wood and mud, a few cows, a few chickens, a few dogs. It did not look like an important village. "Our part of Korea is like a dragon with many humps," his father said. "The humps are the mountains, the first hump facing the sea, the last hump facing the king's palace. Our mountain is the first hump. Our fire is the first fire." Every evening at sunset, Song-hee's father climbed to the top of the mountain, carrying a pair of tongs and a little brass pot filled with live coals. Coals to start a fire so big it could be seen from the next mountain, where another firekeeper saw it and lit his fire, a fire big enough to be seen from the next mountain, where a third firekeeper saw it and lit his fire, and on and on. A fire on every hump of the dragon's back, all the way to the last one, the hump that could be seen from the palace walls. When the king saw the fire on the last mountain, he knew that all was well in the land. "When trouble comes to our land, it almost always comes from the sea," Sanghee's father explained. "If ever we could see enemy ships, I will not light our fire, and the next firekeeper will not light his fire, and on until the king sees our darkness on the last hump. He will know that trouble has come to our land, and he will send soldiers to fight the enemy." "We are fortunate," Sanghee's father said. "In your time and my time and our grandfather's time, the fire has always been lit. It is good to live in a time of peace. It is good that soldiers have never come." Soldiers, tall, brave soldiers with shiny swords. Sanghee wished he could see soldiers just once. Evening. Sanghi shooed the chickens into their coop. He glanced up at the mountain looking for the fire. No fire. His father was a little late. Sanghi fetched water from the river. He poured the water into the barrel and then glanced up at the mountain again. No fire. Sanghi looked out at the sea where the setting sun made a path on the water. Could those be ships bobbing on the waves? No, just a flock of seagulls. No enemies, no trouble, but still no fire. Sang-hee called his mother. He pointed at the mountain. She looked and then turned and stared at the sea. "Sang-hee, you must run and see what has happened," she said. "Something is wrong. There is no trouble from the sea, and the fire must be lit." Sang-hee ran up the mountain path. He knew the path like a friend, but tonight it was not at all friendly. Stones tripped him. Branches reached out to lash his face. He ran until he could not run anymore. A strange noise, a groaning sound, a groan from the bushes by the path. "Father!" Sang he, "I am all right, but I fell and hurt my ankle, and I fear it is broken. I cannot walk. You must light the fire. Hurry!" Sang he grabbed the brass pot and then ran again. The fire, he had to light the fire. His feet pounded out a song on the path. Light the fire, light the fire, light the fire. At last Sang He reached the top of the mountain. There was the brushy pile, ready to be lit. He knelt, trembling from his run. He picked up one coal with the tongs and dropped it. It broke into 100 red jewels that glowed for a moment and then died. A second coal, gleaming bright as a soldier's sword. If there is no fire, the soldiers will come. There will be angry when they find no enemies here. But maybe not all of them will be angry. Maybe there is a soldier who would be glad for a chance to visit the sea. I could show him the beach, where to catch the best fish, where to find the prettiest shells. After that, he might teach me a little about sword fighting. Sang He wished he could see soldiers just once. I could say I dropped the pot and spilled all the coals. That was an accident. While Sang He thought, the second coal burned out. It looked into the brass pot. Only one coal left. One coal glowing fiercely, almost as if it was talking, as if it were saying, light the fire, and a time of peace in his father's voice. Sang He carefully picked up the last coal and put it on the tinder at the bottom of the brush pile. It smoked and smoldered, and for a moment it looked as if it would go out, and then a tongue of flame licked the tinder. It ate all the tinder and reached greedily for the brush. Soon the whole pile was aflame. Sang He watched the flames. He saw a great battle, soldiers, their shining swords clashing. After the fire died, Sang He waited until the ashes cooled and then swept them aside. He built a new pile of brush for the next day, as his father had always done, and his grandfather before him. Then Sang He walked back down the path. His father was waiting. Did it burn well, my son? Yes, father. He put an arm around his father's waist. His father hobbled as they walked and leaned on Sang He's shoulder. When I was a boy, I too wished the soldiers would come. Sang He drew in a quick breath. How did father know? Do not forget, my son, that we are part of the king's guard, just as the soldiers are. We are the very first part. Sang He's father smiled. The village will be pleased to hear that another trustworthy firekeeper has been born to our family. Suddenly, Sang He was glad he had lit the fire. The gladness felt as warm as a glowing coal. Wow, look at that. And until his father's ankle healed, it was Sang He who climbed the mountain every evening at sunset, carrying the brass pot filled with live coals to start a fire that could be seen from the next mountain, to tell another firekeeper to light his fire, and on, until the king himself knew that all was well in the land. The end. That was a great book, and it was called The Firekeeper's Son. I love that. I've got another book about a village, and this is kind of silly. It's called Maxie. It's by a wonderful writer named Virginia Call, and I've read some of her books. They're really good. Okay, this one's named Maxie. Let's read. It was market day in the little Austrian village. For miles around, everyone came down to town. It was always a wonderful day to catch up on gossip and to hear all the news. Today, the villagers were very excited. There was a large sign nailed to a tree, and everyone was talking about it. The housewives and the policemen and the ladies who sold eggs and the man who sold sausages, and all of the dogs were excited too. For this is what the sign said. I am looking for a dog to live at the castle with me. He must be big and fierce and fast. Bring your dogs for the test on Saturday morning. And it's signed the Baron. The old lady and the old man who lived on the edge of town read the sign too. But when they looked around them, all of the large dogs, the mastiffs, the boxers, and the police dogs, they just looked worried. For they had a dog too, one that needed a good home. But the Baron wanted a big dog. And their Maxie was a dash hound. He was little and gentle and certainly not very fast. He and his mother lived with the old couple, and now Maxie was old enough to find a new home. His brother had left the week before to live with a forester. When all of the dogs in the village went off into the forest to chase rabbits, poor little Maxie with his stubby little legs was left far behind. When they bound up the mountains, he could never get over the trees and boulders. And as for being fierce, while his very best friend in the whole village was a scrawny yellow cat named Elfie, they played for hours together. Sometimes he would growl at her, and sometimes she would spit at him, and sometimes they wrestled and rolled over and over. They acted as if they would eat each other up, but they were friends and would never hurt each other. So there's Maxie right there, and there's his best friend Elfie. The old lady and the old man talked about Maxie as they ate supper. They said it would be nice if he was big and fierce and fast. Maxie heard them and went out into the little garden. He looked up at the mountain. High above the garden, brooding over the village, stood the Baron's castle. If only he could live there. But the Baron's dog must be big and fierce and fast. Maxie just sighed. When Saturday came, the old lady said, "Let's take Maxie up anyway. He's certainly not big, nor fierce, nor fast, but perhaps the Baron will see how gentle and friendly he is." So they washed Maxie and brushed his coat and put a flower in his collar. And the old man scrubbed his knees and straightened the feather in his hat. And the old lady put on a new apron, and off they started. All around them were the rest of the villagers, taking their dogs up to the Baron. The dogs raced ahead, leaping over the boulders. Poor little Maxie scampered out after them, but he had so much trouble that the old man finally put him in his knapsack and carried him up to the top where everyone was gathered. First off, the Baron said all of the dogs should stand in line so he could measure them. He would pick the 10 biggest dogs. Little Maxie stood at the end. How could he ever hope to live in the castle while he was the littlest dog in the whole village? He thought to himself, all of the dogs are much bigger than I, but I'll never win if I don't even try. I shall do my best. He craned his neck to see over the heads of the large dogs, but still he couldn't see. So he stood on his hind legs, leaning against a tree, and when the Baron came, there was Maxie, taller than any of the other dogs. The Baron looked very surprised. "Well, well," he said, "you're really a very big dog when you stand this way, Maxie. Well, you're the tallest dog in the whole village." He looked at Maxie for a long while, then he smiled. "I guess it's all in the way you look at things," he said. So he chose Maxie and 9 other dogs to pass on to the next test. See how he's standing by the tree and getting measured? Let's find out what happens next. Maxie groaned. He would never pass the next test. Large and fierce, the Baron said. Friendly little Maxie, how he wished that he could be fierce and ferocious now, he said to himself. All of the dogs were much fiercer than I, but I'll never win if I don't even try. I shall try to do my best. Maxie watched a man bring in a sack. There was something in it squirming and snarling. The other dogs were growling and acting very brave. Then the man opened the sack, and there he dumped something on the ground. Out tumbled Elfie, his friend Elfie. She looked nervous, and her yellow eyes showed angry sparks. She had wanted to hunt mice, and instead she had to help test the dogs to see how fierce they were. Well, those dogs would be sorry. When the first dog came leaping towards her, she split and clawed at him and sent him back howling. She did the same thing to the next, and the next, and the next. At last there was only Maxie left. He ran up to Elfie and nipped her tail. She jumped around, ready to scratch, but when she saw who it was, she knew that they were playing. So she just pretended to fight. How fierce the fight looked, with all of the spitting and yelping and rolling around. They're just pretend fighting here, because they're friends. So Maxie was chosen with 4 others for the final test. The Baron wanted a dog that was big and fierce and fast, and little Maxie looked down at his stubby legs. Oh dear, he thought, this time I really haven't a chance. All of the others are faster than I, but I'll never win if I don't even try. I shall do my best. Get ready, said the Baron. Then he hurried down to the village where he would wait to greet the winner. When he waved his handkerchief, they were to start. The 5 dogs lined up waiting, and then far below they saw the handkerchief. The race was on. Maxie ran as fast as he could, but the others passed him. He tried to run faster, but they were far ahead. Scrambling and sliding, he raced down the mountain, his little legs churning as fast as they could, but he was left far behind. There's everybody else, and there's Maxie right there. To add to his burr caught on his tail. How it prickled. He tried to snap at the burr, and he lost his footing. Head over head he went. He started to roll. Faster and faster he went, rolling down the mountain, over and over, faster and faster and faster. First he passed the mastiffs, then he passed the boxers, then he passed the police dogs. Faster and faster he rolled, leaving the others far behind. And at the bottom, smack, he rolled right into the Baron and knocked him over. How silly. He looked at the Baron anxiously and wagged his tail. The Baron looked at him for a long time, and then he smiled. Well, well, he said at last, I guess I have a dog that is bigger and fiercer and faster than all of the others in the village. How would you like to live up at the castle, Maxie? Little Maxie wagged his tail and barked happily. How wonderful it was. The Baron had his dog, and he, Maxie, would live up at the castle. Elfie could visit him, and he could always roll down the mountain to visit his mother and the old couple. He said to himself, though I thought all the others were better than I, this shows what can happen when I really try. I shall always do my best. The end. That was a great book, and it was named Maxie. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and we won't be meeting again tomorrow, but we'll meet again on Wednesday. Bye, friends. See you later.